Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, where it's all about creating the life you want, the business you want, and making a real difference. Join us in unlocking the code to true success. And now your host, Tony Caliendo, Master Coach with reTHINK Coaching.
Welcome to the Mindset Architect Podcast, episode number 26. Today, I have a real treat for you. Our very first guest here on the podcast is Janet Allen. And so, Janet, I could introduce you, and I know that you and I go back a little ways back. And I was looking back, and it's 2009 that you and I, our paths crossed in the real estate world. But I want you to just take a minute and introduce yourself. And today is going to be talking about how other people in the industry have navigated through mindset and challenges that we've all faced. But first, Janet, tell us who you are.
Well, my name is Janet Allen, and my role here, and as I met you, Tony, I've been with Republic Title of Texas for almost 22 years. I came by way of a career in real estate that I was a realtor. I actually still am licensed. I've just had a very slow 22 years. Haven't sold anything, certainly closed a lot. And so I sold homes for about 17 years prior to that. And so I've been in the residential real estate space since about 1986 in the Dallas area.
Nice.
And so my role here at Republic focuses on customers. So we have about 12 branches, and inside those branches, we have salespeople, some one, some two, and those are my people. So that is the team that I lead here, and I'm very, very fortunate to have had such a great career and continue to have one here at Republic Title.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I know when I met you back in 2009, I immediately started placing my business with you. I was transitioning a little bit out of production, but I got to say, if you're in the Dallas area, Republic Title is truly one of the best. So,
thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Janet, you and I have seen a lot happen in the real estate lane. I got licensed in 2001, back in the day, where we're carrying around pagers, and faxes were really pretty cool off thermal paper. And your maps go, so you can find your way around, right? And I think what I've admired about you the most is, you're in it. You're in it with your agents. You're in it with those people who put trust in you at Republic to get what they've worked so hard to get into escrow or to get into title to get to closing. And so I know there's the public facing, and then there's what goes on behind the scenes. And I'm just curious for you, what do you do to stay in that positive place so that your mindset is in the right place? And what do you do intentionally to work on that? Because I know just based upon some of the stuff we've seen that it's not just happening by accident.
Right. Well, you do have to start by being intentional about it, because you get whipped around, whether a real estate agent, an escrow officer, or a salesperson at a title company, or anybody in that space, lending, what have you. You have a lot of balls in the air. And so I think that it's very important to be intentional about it. And as you know, Tony, when I was selling real estate, pretty early in my career, I realized that things just weren't going to happen on their own, and that there was things that I needed to do for myself that would propel me into the space that I wanted to be in. And that began my personal development journey. I went to one seminar. I think you've heard this story, but I went to one seminar, and it literally changed my life. Now, I can't say the big takeaway from that was, I started doing mailings or something like that. All of that was present, but it really ingrained in me that I got to work on myself first. And when I do that, then I can bring more to others. So I can't, you cannot run a car on an empty tank of gas. It's just not going to work. So ways of doing that, well, let's see, let me just quote the book, the Miracle Morning book, where I started doing a morning routine that really changed everything for me. It really, really did. Now, am I doing that 100% of the time, I really, really try. And I notice that when I don't, I run out of gas. I'm on a quarter tank or an eighth of a tank. So I always go back to that. But it starts with your day and what you're putting up here every day.
Yeah. Hal Elrod is a Miracle Morning author. He's awesome. And it's a good, if I think if you're a little lost on what to do to create that space of intentional working on mindset, and what you do in the first hour of being up is really going to set the tone for the rest of your day. That's a
Mhm.
good place to go. So tell me, what specifically do you do? Do you do journaling? Do you do meditation? What do you do to get your day off on the right foot?
Well, I wake up.
That's a good thing.
I wake up. And one of the first things that I do actually is I do some reading. I start slow. And so I'll read spirituals passages, things of that nature, just to kind of remind me I'm not a great meditator. I don't I know how to quiet my mind, but I quiet it through reading. So I spend about 20 minutes first thing I get up. I all of us have to have a little have to take a little medication in the morning. It's no big deal. No, I'm not sick or anything like that. It's just something I have to take, but I have to wait 20 minutes to have a coffee or anything like that. So I take that 20 minutes and I go in and I read. And then I know I'm done with that because 20 minutes have passed over. And then I'll either get some exercise, like to move the body,
Yep.
and then about 20 minutes, 20, 20, 20. That's a whole hour. Do some exercise for about 20 minutes, and then I love to journal. Journaling is my friend, and I absolutely recommend it to anybody that might be feeling a little lost, that you immediately start journaling. And there are so many prompts that you can find out there. We're so lucky in today's world that we have so many resources at our fingertips.
Yep.
And if you don't know how to journal, I highly suggest you Google it or whatever. And there's different ways that you can prompt yourself into journaling, and that's typically what I'm doing. At least those three things: I'm reading, I'm exercising, and I'm journaling. And then after that, you know what I don't do? I don't watch the news. I
Awesome.
do not watch the news.
Yep.
And I actually, like on the weekend, I have like the e-paper, and I'll read a little of the paper on the weekends, but I do not watch the news. There is nothing going on out there that's going to affect my day. So, and typically we bend to the negative, and so I just don't watch the news. So I'll listen to a podcast, maybe the Architect Mindset podcast, or I have a lot of favorites. So I'll listen to a podcast, while I'm getting myself ready for the day.
Yeah, that's the big one. We cut out the news really on the onset of the pandemic, because even when you watch, you hear that ominous music, that dun dun dun. You're like, are you kidding
Right.
me? Before the bad news came on. And I think that's been probably one of the biggest gifts, it's not being irresponsible, because we still get news, right? We just choose to digest it in a different way. Like you, I'd subscribe to a couple electronic things that is nobody's opinion. It's just facts. And I get to
Yeah,
decide
exactly.
what I want to do with that. So yeah, I think that's a huge one. If you're engaging in the news at a really high level, I would just invite you to think about, next time you watch it, count how much is negative versus how much is positive, and make your decision from there if you want to continue down that road, because bad news sells. That's just how it.
It's really sad too. I mean, I wish it weren't. I wish that wasn't the case, but it really is. Now at night, I'll watch a little 10 o'clock news, but
Yeah,
invariably, if it bleeds, it leads. You
yeah,
know, you
yeah,
know. I'll like, okay, I'll go start the dishwasher or something till the weather comes on. Then the weather comes on, then I'm out. Like as
yeah,
if I look at my phone to see what the weather's going to do. And it's just a habit. You know
yeah,
what I mean? Like, do
yeah.
you know where your children are? Remember that? 10
Yes,
o'clock?
yep. It's just a ritual. Yeah,
Yeah.
we all have it. So Janet, you have been an agent, and then you've been on the side of servicing the agent when they put a client under contract. And so you've seen a lot of agents, different levels of success throughout your time at Republican as an agent. So what would you say, you know, you and I talked about this last week. We've been faced with a lot of things in the last 3 or 4 years, right? We had a really robust market. Then we got hit with COVID and nobody knew what to do. The world shut down and we all just kind of rolled up our sleeves and we're like, here we go. But we had the pandemic, then we got through the pandemic, and now we've got the high interest rates and low inventory. So from what you have seen, what would you recommend to an agent who's maybe, like you said earlier, kind of stuck? I know journaling is a good way to get out of it, but what would you say you've seen work for agents who are in this for the long haul and to make this their lifelong career?
What I see, the mistake that I see that gets made constantly, especially with newer agents, or maybe your 3-year mark or whatever, is that they are not letting people know what they actually do for a living.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but they go out and they want to service all these strangers and they wonder why they get frustrated rather than starting with the nucleus of their own sphere.
Yep.
And so, I think that real estate agents are the most called on profession in the world. There's 42 trades in the contract alone. So you've got title companies calling on you, you've got lenders calling on you, you've got home warranty, you've got plumbers, you've got roofers, you've got all these people calling on you. So it's very easy to get distracted. You've got people that want to sell you leads, kind of back to the point of
Yep.
buying leads, strangers. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't work. I'm just saying that if you want to dig your heels in, then you have got to, it's an old PR move. You've got to position yourself as the expert with the people that you know. And let me tell you something, realtors out there listening, they are interested in seeing you succeed. They truly, truly are. The people that know you and love you and care about you are interested in seeing you succeed. They don't want you to fail. So why would you not get in front of those people as often as possible? That to me is the easiest way to jumpstart yourself if you feel like you're in the doldrums. Does that make sense to you, Tony, as a coach?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we always say your database is your data bank, or your database is your business. And, there's a much higher conversion rate when you talk to people that you know versus people that you don't know. So from a return on investment of time, it certainly pays off. And you're right, Janet. I remember I left the hotel industry to come into real estate.
Mhm.
And my database was kind of sprinkled all throughout the country, but those that were local that knew me, they did want to see me succeed. But the difference was I made sure they understood what I was doing, and I made sure they understood that I could use their help. And a lot of us are afraid to say, "Oh, hey, Janet, it's Tony. I could use your help," because we don't want to look weak, or we don't want to look like our business isn't doing great. And I think that's probably one of the biggest mistakes agents make is they don't want to ask for help. And the other mistake they make is, well, I'm going to save until I know what I'm doing, until I call people that know me, because I don't want to look silly in front of them. And they're the people that are the most forgiving, honestly. So I
Absolutely.
like what you say, claim your
Make
space.
your network network. Have you heard that one?
I like
Make
that.
your network. And I had a conversation just along these lines. As I said, I have about 22 salespeople sprinkled around the Metroplex. It's a lot of people, a lot of salespeople.
It's a lot.
And that's a personality all into itself. But luckily, I am one too, so I can understand that. But I have a young woman on my team now that's been with us for about 4 months. And when I interviewed her, she's fresh out of college. And when I interviewed her, I said, "How do you feel about sales?" And she was like, "Ick." Like everybody has that ick factor on sales.
Yep.
Which I said, "Well, my job is to get you over that." Once we got her hired and everything, I said, "My job is to get you over that. We don't want you to feel that way, because why don't we replace the word sale or sales with help?" Because I told her, there's not a realtor. Well, I don't want to know a realtor that doesn't want to come to a title company, whether it's our title company or another title company, because that's where the magic happens. That's where you actually are getting paid for the work that you do.
Yep.
If you don't land at a title company, then likely you're not going to make any money in this business. But
Correct.
replacing the word sales with help is a mindset trick,
Yep.
that people go, oh, she wants to help me. She has, because we really, as real estate agents, as title company representatives, and many others, we are literally selling, we have no widget. We are selling an intangible, and it's called service. And so I think that people get, really can really get themselves down in the dumps if they forget that they have a network of people that want to help them, and that you actually have something that you inside you that's going to help somebody else.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that is a huge mindset shift from sales to a helper, right? Uh,
Mhm.
and it is even in like the scripting that I'll use. I will ask people, "Hey, listen, I could use your help. I'm looking to to help 30 families buy, sell, or invest in real estate." And it just changes it, right? It's just, I need your help. So I think, network, net worth, database, data bank, you really got to position yourself with the people that you know and love. And I think you'd be pleasantly surprised how it returns to you, because it is your greatest source of business.
It is. You have meaningful connections. Use them.
Yep.
Use
Yes.
those connections. They're meaningful. They mean something to them. They mean something to you. People that you're meeting off the internet, unless you can get eyeball to eyeball with them and face to face, what they say, eyelash to eyelash, and really try to learn about them, that's great. You can do that. But if you start with the people that you know first, you're just going to go a lot further and a lot faster. That's just my thought.
No, I agree. And you bring up a good point, Janet. You and I mean, I laugh. Like, I started writing contracts on stone, carving it in stone. But like when I started real estate, our contracts were 5 pages long. Now they're, I don't know how many pages they are anymore. They're
9.
9. So things have changed. But the one thing that I know that hasn't changed is this is a relationship based business. It just is. You think about it, you're helping people typically purchase their largest asset. And the relationship part's really important. So you and I've seen this evolve from, maps goes to GPS, from, I had a typewriter in my first office that we would type in, right? Because I live
I'm
like
going to tell you.
handwriting.
Yeah.
You go get the form out of the box, you put it in the typewriter, fill it in.
Oh,
But
yeah.
the one thing that hasn't changed yet, I see agents avoiding it, is that in-person connection. Like you said, eyelash to eyelash. So I think you said something really important. The internet is a great way to generate, but what would you recommend to people to do to get in front of more people and to engage in a relationship? I think you've said a couple key things: offer to help, be knowledgeable, let be a resource. But I think you and I come from the same thing. We don't hide behind technology as much,
Right.
and that's a place for people to feel safe. What's your advice on that?
Well, this is going to sound really, really simple, but the idea of let's call it like the process of a sale, you're qualifying, you're prospecting, you're qualifying your prospect. After you do all that, and that still is a viable prospect for you, get an appointment. That's the idea.
Yep.
The idea is to get an appointment, a face-to-face appointment with someone, to get together with them. Now, we live in a much faster, I think the sale goes much faster these days, thanks to technology,
Yep.
thanks to the fact that, well, quite frankly, buyers have much more access to the inventory or what's out there than they ever have before. So that relationship development piece really goes much faster. So you've got to be able to make it fast. You've got to make sure that you have your questions that you're going to ask so you can get in there fast. Because often, I think agents are getting calls from buyers, and the buyer, prospective buyer, just wants to see the house immediately. Because
Yep.
we live in this instant gratification, this very instant, and it wasn't like that back in the Stone Age when I was selling real estate.
No.
It really took a lot more time. So we have to make meaningful connections much, much faster. But the idea is to get in front of them and start holding their hands. you're going to find out really quickly if someone is interested in working with you or not. You're just gonna you're gonna feel it, don't you think? You know?
You do feel it. But I think what you're saying is really important, Janet, about you do get that gut feeling, and of course safety and all that stuff is important. But I think what you're saying is really, really important. We still have a really strong hold in our position as real estate agents because there's a lot that we do behind the scenes. But buyers do have and sellers do have access to more information. If you do not get in there and insert a relationship into it, your value isn't there. It's just not there. I can turn to the internet. I can go to one of the websites. I can go mine data somewhere else other than from you. So I think that's really key advice is get in front of them as quickly as you can and build that personal relationship with them so that they feel connected to you, that they're going to
Mhm.
call you versus going online. They're going to lean into you for advice versus
Yeah.
Googling and finding out.
You have to prove your value at a much faster pace.
Yep.
So behind the scenes, like you said, what's going on behind the scenes? Republic Title, I'm not shameless plug here, but it's not shameless because we spend a lot, our big claim to fame as far as real estate agents and our customers is that we educate them, that we have a very stealth education department, that we are do technology training, legal training. Tony,
Yep.
now we're actually going on we're trying to get in on the guts of these people. And so you have to prove your value really fast. Well, how am I going to do that? Well, behind the scenes, you got to study. Life is a game. Real estate is a game. So if you don't know the inventory, for example, then how valuable are you to that prospect? If you don't know what's going on, if you don't have partners on the lending side of things, so you understand what's going on with people's the availability of mortgages to people and what the rates are going, you've got to do that back end work. You got to study the market, and when you do that, just like anything else, you're going to be able to prove your value much, much faster. That's my opinion anyway, and I think you'd agree with that.
100%. There's nothing worse. I remember as a new agent working an open house, and this is where I learned the lesson, unfortunately, in real time. Somebody came in and they knew more about the homes that were available in the neighborhood around it than me. And I made that was back in 2001. I'm like, this is never going to happen again. And I became a student of the market because you
Mhm.
have to be 10 steps ahead of the client.
That's right.
And Jen, I think that's probably one of the things I learned the most in working with you guys at Republic Title is, and I know it's different because you're dealing with money and there's a lot of eyes on you to make sure that monies are going to the right places. But what I love about Republic is 9 times out of 10, I would call to check on something and you guys had already solved the problem, solved it, it was done, you moved on, or you were calling me saying, hey, this happened, we took care of it. And I think that's a great testament to having systems and models in place. So
Mhm.
we see a lot of agents out there who and you get to see them at the closing table that come in and, post-it notes everywhere. I think a big part of, and that might have been me early on, I think a big part of an agent's success is, oh, I have post-it notes to this day. However, when it came to a contract, I got very organized. So in when you were an agent and then starting off at Republic, talk a little bit about setting up the systems and models so that you could stay 5 steps ahead of the client because there's nothing worse than the client being ahead of you.
There is nothing worse. There really isn't. And I mean, I would say that systems and models on my real estate career or here at Title.
I mean both, but probably right now at Title, you guys are buttoned
Right.
down tight on your
Yeah,
systems and models.
absolutely. Well, our title company is a little different, very different from other title companies in that we have, once again, we have support departments. And so typically at 99.9% of the title companies, I know that we, in this market, the escrow officer is responsible for the contract and the transaction from A to Z. And they're like being in real estate, like you're selling real estate, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes that, and most people don't even understand title insurance. We are in the insurance business.
Yep.
But we start out with the commitment department, the policy department, the curative department, curing those problems that we uncover once the commitment comes in. So our escrow officers are very much, and escrow teams are very supported at the corporate level. There are probably at least 50 sets of eyes that see those contracts, okay, that go through the system. So that's very different. Most title companies do not have that. So
Right.
that on the escrow side of things is really, again, one of our big claims to fame. Most people don't know that, but it's true. And it is what our founding father, Bill Kramer, came up with. And it has really, really worked. It's about supporting each other. Now, as far as the sales side goes, and the salespeople that I have, I would say what I pat myself on the back a little bit here because it's, again, I'm talking about salespeople, and they are getting out in the field. They are getting pulled one way to another. But I say, if you've got to get some things done first thing in the morning,
Yep.
and this is a process, this is a system. And so I want them calling on the deals that closed the day before, calling on the agents that closed deals the day before to say thank you. How did it go? Was everything to your liking? And then they're calling on the contracts that have come in the night before. They're calling those people or emailing them. I prefer a call. I was telling that young woman I mentioned about earlier, I said, and again, she's 23 years old. So there's this generational thing where texting and emailing, is the name of the game. And I said, I have a challenge for you. I want you to make a phone call a day for a week. I want you to start getting used to actually talking to people, because one of her things is that she said, I don't feel like people are taking me seriously because I'm so young. And I said, well, they don't know you.
Yep.
So they can't get to know you with words on a page. And so anyway, we're calling on our closings, we're calling on our new contracts, and then we go into prospecting mode and making appointments. So
Awesome.
does that answer your question?
It does. I think, Republic Title has always been amazing to me, that I always knew what was going to happen next. And I think that's really key for us as agents as well, to have a system in place that what's going to happen next, and you can convey that to your client, because a lot of times it's the first time they've bought or the first time that they have sold. And even if they have, it's been 3, 4, 5 years since their last transaction in most cases, and they're a little uncertain. We do this on the daily. But I think what I'm hearing from you is you have a structure, you've got a system, and you've got models that you follow that allow for your people to be successful and for you to be successful. And I think that's a big opportunity for agents, entrepreneurs, because a lot of us got into this industry for this thing called freedom and flexibility. And we like to wing it, right? And I think you and I both know several agents who are incredibly successful, and there's nothing winging about it. They've got systems in place, they've got models in place, they know where things are throughout the process, and they're 10 steps ahead of the client versus the client being ahead of them. And so that's what I love about your salespeople. You're always ahead of. And I think that if I could stress that to anybody out there who's an agent, who, whether you're day one or you've been in it for 10 years, is to kind of do a check-in with your systems and make sure that you've got everything in place. So
Yeah, and again, I'm going to repeat myself, but it bears repeating. Set up the relationships first. Make sure, don't leave it to chance. Get with a great title company. Have a couple in your back pocket that they know you. Make sure you are in relationship with lenders, a couple of them, 2, 3, that you trust, because you're going to have to hand these people, you're going to take your customers, you're going to show them property, you're going to take a listing, and then you got to hand it off to someone else so that you can then go do it again. So you better make sure you know who these people are.
yes.
And so, I heard someone say, there was a panel last week at one of the MLS meetings, and talking about the relationships and how very important they are, both, again, with your customers and prospects, but also on that back end. And
Yep.
so that's one thing that, again, I think a lot of newer agents miss because they're getting bombarded. It's not their fault. They are getting bombarded.
Yep.
I mean, we have a system, okay, that gives us leads every day. And on the bottom of those, that's open. Those are new listings. Those are in escrow, and those that have closed. And then on the bottom of that thing are new agents. Now, I happen to know that we are not the only people that use this particular lead source.
Yep.
And I think, they are getting hit up immediately,
Yep.
and they haven't made a dime yet, and they're like, oh my God, what's happening?
Yep. Yeah, but you guys are betting on that there's going to be successful agents and you want to partner with them. And I think that is really important part of the journey is partnering with the right vendors that have your clients and your best interest at heart. And that's, I think, what I love about Republic is, I grew up, my real estate career, I grew up in Dallas, and I was grateful for you guys because you were such a great resource. So that's why I wanted you to be on here today, because you're a really good example of what it looks like to navigate the market. And, the thing I have learned over my 23 years of real estate is that the real estate market is not static and it's not predictable. It's not consistent unless you make it consistent. And I love what you said, and I want us to close with this, and I think it's really important. It's just a market, right? And when you do your morning routine, you do your exercise, you do your reading, and you do your journaling, it gets a lot of that noise out of your head so that you can approach it that it's just a market. And when you've got the systems and the vendors and all of the stuff set up, it's great. But the number one thing that I'm taking away from our conversation today is to get into relationship as quickly as you can. Because don't be the most organized agent to go out of business because you've spent time building all of these things, but you haven't spent any time building a relationship.
Network.
Yeah, building work and making
work that net. And I think that, I agree. I think that in getting into relationship, having these systems in place, Tony, I know you know this, but if you have your systems in place, you have your relationships in place, all of that is down pat, it won't matter what kind of market it is.
It doesn't.
It won't matter. You'll still be successful. Maybe a little slower, but really at the end of the day, being successful is not always about making a bunch of money. Being successful is also about how you feel.
Yes. Yep.
And so, define what success means to you, I think would be, something else. And you're going to find that if you have meaningful relationships, then success will soon follow if it's not already there.
It does. And I think that's really important, Janet. And I agree. I have the privilege of coaching agents across the country and one in Canada, so I can say I'm international. But I think what's funny is that when the pandemic hit, we didn't have a history of what to do, right? I mean, Spanish flu I don't think it was around during then. So we just were having to figure it out on the fly. Right. But those who had their systems in place and had in-depth relationships with people were less affected. They were affected, but less affected. Then we had the interest rate thing happen. And again, those people that had a deep relationship that their client, their database, their network was relying on them for information, it could calm the waters, had the most success. And what I think is tying a couple pieces together, what we talked about, you talked about making sure that you know the market, you're the area expert, right? Mm-hmm. And what you and I talked about, the news. Mm-hmm. Bad news sells. So if you're a Joe Q Public and you're watching the news about real estate and you're thinking about selling and you hear horrible news about the market, that's who you're going to rely on. I don't care if you're in Omaha, Nebraska, and they're doing a story in Los Angeles. They're different markets. And so this is where the relationship piece will serve you really well. Because if a client hears something on the news, they're going to I'm going to run this by Janet and see if this is really true. That's when you've arrived at your relationship with your network. And that's what I think everybody should strive for.
I love that. True.
Yes. It's all in the relationship. So, all right, any closing words? I've got a couple, but anything you want to add before we I never shy for words.
Well, I know I'm typically never short on words either, but no, I'm just really delighted to have been with you on this today, Tony. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, Janet. And I'm going to say this shameless plug. If you're an agent in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, I got to tell you, Republic Title, Janet Allen and her team are phenomenal. And I can say that from personal experience working with her group. So Janet Allen, Republic Title, we love you so much. Thanks for being here. Hang out for a second after we're done. Okay. And you guys, if you need to get a hold of Janet and you don't know how, reach out to me. I'll put you in touch with her. And we will see you next week. Have a good week. If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you must come check out the Mindset Architect Group Coaching Program. It's our monthly program where we explore the power of your mindset, help you identify what you truly want in business and life, and then help you reach those goals. Come check us out at rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. That's rethinkcoaching.com/group-program. We'll see you there.